Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh, and welcome to another episode of Open Forum with me, your host, Annie Zahura Abdul Aziz. And once again, we'll be having with us yang berbahagia Prof. Datuk Sri Dr. Zaliha binti Kamaruddin, Professor from the International Institute of Islamic Thought and Civilization, IIUM KL campus. Thank you for being with us again, Prof.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me again, Sister Annie.
And we are in our second part of our discussion on the topic empowering the family institutions, issues and challenges. And I may recap our a bit of our discussion last week, where you have actually introduced to us or defined what is family institutions from various perspectives, especially from the civilizational and also some legal definitions of Islamic institution, and you have also mentioned how it is perceived from the Islamic perspective as well, Prof. And I think when we ended our discussion in the first part of our discussion last week, we actually talk about how we need to empower the family institutions. And if I can pick up your last sentence about what the government must do with regard to helping family institution, Prof. So, if we may start our discussion this week on the role of government in empowering the family institution, you may share that with our listeners, Prof.
Thank you, Sister Annie. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillah, with the grace of Allah, we are here again to discuss on the family institution, the impact of COVID-19 and what we can do rather than lamenting about our problems. Yeah, but before I go further, I want to touch on one serious impacts of COVID-19 besides health. I mean, people are talking about health all the time on TV, on social media, but they forgot the most vulnerable tend to be the most seriously affected populations. And who are they? They are the community, especially concerning children and families during this pandemic, because children are vulnerable because they couldn't do anything. The fact that they are children, we need to protect them. So that's the reason why all the more reason to do research on this. How many children are affected? I guess the majority of children are affected, if not through mental health, it's through education and some other things, which we will discuss. These pressing challenges. Yeah, we did mention the role of government. I would persuade the government um, to work together with several NGOs, yeah, because NGOs are volunteers in times, in difficult times like this. They could provide homeless services, those for the homeless, or people who have become homeless due to COVID.
Yeah.
If they can pay rent, now they cannot pay rent anymore and they are made homeless. So it is the government's responsibility to put up centers for homeless families. And then the education ministry should look into early childhood development, including Ministry of Human Resource. It's not just one ministry here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Childcare, that's under the Ministry of Women and Community Development. When parents are so poor, they cannot take care of their children. They cannot put their children in childcare. So they would ask a senior member of the family to look after. If they don't have senior member, again I say, the role of near relatives are very important from Islamic perspective. That's when you get your mom and dad, your grandparents to look after your children while you go out to put food on the table. Yeah.
Mhm.
So childcare is another big issue. I'm just pointing out areas, yes, Sister Annie.
Yeah.
They should have economic stability programs. These are already done in the US.
Mhm.
Although certain areas, certain counties are having it, some are still in the process, some are still in the pipeline, and they have to look into resources to help those in need. So that's the reason when we do research, we will identify the vulnerable groups. Who
Yeah.
are the vulnerable groups and what can be done to assist these vulnerable groups? We
Mhm.
heard, oh, those working with the government, they have lesser problems. Fine, let's have the number, the exact number. Those who are not in the government, those whose saving can last only for 2 or 3 months, or those who
Mhm.
have no savings at all. All right.
Mhm.
So, our biggest concern, or the government biggest concern, is for families living on the edge. I call it living on the edge or living in
Yeah.
poverty. Yeah. Now they have become double, triple poor, and loss of a
Yeah.
job, reduced income, limited resources for childcare, transportation, all this has been mentioned. I've heard this time and again. I say, oh, can we not talk about it anymore? Can we talk about action? What should we do to counter this? All right.
Mhm.
So, who are the vulnerable groups? We found that single mothers who are already on the edge are
Mhm.
already jumping over the edge. They commit
Yeah.
suicide. We have men committing suicide as well, but we have to identify how many women committing suicide, because as single mothers, they are heads of households. It's very
Yeah.
difficult. This is the problem of our family. It remains nuclear family. They do not
Mhm.
ask for help from extended families. I mean, the
Yeah.
more support system you have, the more stronger support system you have, the more stronger the families are. Right?
Mhm.
So during this pandemic, community providers, you have NGOs, they say, okay, we are helping. But we want to know, what have they helped? What extent have they helped? How many have they reached out? I know that they have fed large group of people living on the streets. We see people coming out of the house, giving food. Forget about the quality of the food, but we have to have a center where the
Mhm.
government can open its doors to the homeless, right? And then
Mhm.
provide additional assistance. Although still many people are afraid to go to these centers, afraid of catching these viruses. But sometimes hunger is more important than life, I guess. So what are special concerns for children? Although children may not be the most susceptible to the infection compared to the elderly, we know
Yeah.
this coming from the mouth of frontliners,
Yeah.
doctors, but the social, educational, and economic consequences may negatively affect the future path of their lives. Perhaps we will miss one generation. They suffered. How they suffered. They have not gone to schools for quite some time, and they have it has impacted on their mental health, as what I've mentioned. And
Yeah.
there are also a range of unique circumstances for families. Not all families are the same. Some
Mhm.
families are able to cope, some families are not, and they are suffering alone in the home.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
We have to look into educational resources. They talk about PDPR. They talk about safe childcare. We see, we've mentioned in the previous recording about safe childcare and access to food
Mhm.
for the children. Because some
Mhm.
children, they rely on schools to feed them. Now that
Yeah.
schools are not open, the family are stressed, thinking how to feed my children. So it
Mm-hmm.
talks about caregiving responsibility for siblings who have to take care of their siblings while a parent continues working or picking up additional shift at their job. So essential worker parents may be struggling to find alternative childcare options. I think that's the
Yeah.
reason why childcare are open, but still there are parents who doesn't want to send their children to childcare. And parents
Mm.
who can work from home are trying to manage their childcare along with employment in a different way. So this is the new
Yeah.
norm. You know,
Yeah.
while attending to the meetings, one hand would be like smacking their children because yeah, because then taking care of the children can become a stressor on the entire family.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think this is a very big problem. As I
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, severe child abuse cases during this stressful period of social distancing and isolation, and children living in unsafe situations may be more exposed. And because all this happens behind closed doors, outreach of frontliners to these vulnerable children are very difficult. All we know,
Mm-hmm.
suddenly children are brought in dead. And
Yeah.
the schools which often could see the telltale signs of abuse are not able to do that because children are they have to access education through online, so you can't see traces all these
Mm-hmm.
traces. Yeah, then you don't have just one child. In Malaysia, you have more children at home engaged in distant learning. And the ministry have to look into additional strain on internet connectivity. So we have SKMM coming in, multimedia coming in. So all the ministry must put their heads together. It's not just
Mm-hmm.
putting their fingers pinpointing, oh, this is human resource ministry, oh, this is women ministry. They have to sit down to think of looking at this multiple grade levels so that they could do their own responsibilities, and to have the current political instability spells disaster. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
how a government could play an effective role with added factors on this
Mm-hmm.
the current political climate.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So basically, I've mentioned on the role of government, but I feel that there are many that the government could do, and then only we
Mm-hmm.
can talk about how families could help themselves. But
Yeah.
how to cope with all this? How to
Yeah.
cope with all this?
You've mentioned interestingly, Prof, about the impact to children, especially because we know, during the pandemic and how the rising number of orphans, especially young children who left behind because their parents or either their mother or their father who had passed away because they are COVID-19 victims, and this
Mm-mm,
number is also
mm-mm,
how worrying it is to the society, to the community. Um, in helping the family institutions, Prof, per se, what are the skills relevant for family institutions when we talk about
mm-mm.
all the challenges, all the issues faced by family institutions in the context of Malaysia? We are talking about Keluarga Malaysia, and
Yeah,
Objective Keluarga Malaysia is also
yeah,
focusing on this unit of family institutions. So
yeah,
what are the roles that must family institutions must undertake, Prof, if
yeah.
can share with our listeners?
How much time do I have, Sister Annie?
15 minutes, Prof.
Okay, 15 minutes. I will answer that in 15 minutes.
Inshallah.
Um, I am very positive that we will pull through, right?
Mhm.
As we have pulled through other major health threats, right? We have pulled through the tragedy of 9/11. We have pulled through natural disasters. In Malaysia, we have storms, we have floods. Other countries, they have more natural disasters than us, earthquakes. And we can see through history that we can figure out the next right steps. I think it is inbuilt in us, this techniques of survival. But the government must assure its people that there is always light at the end of the tunnel. Now, having this Keluarga Malaysia is a mode. It's only a mode. It's not a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a mode to guide people to see the light at the end of the tunnel. Right? How we can figure out our next, not just steps, but the next right steps, and then make it happen. Because some people, they love to talk day and night. Apa tak cakap? Everything they want to say, although they are not, it's not their area. Also, they want to talk.
Yeah.
But what we can do is to put our experts together. Our experts together from all these ministries. All right. Let us re-examine how, as a community, we can support children and families. Right? The fact that IKIM had initiated this open forum is good. Although some people I have heard friends saying, sudahlah, dah habis dah festival cakap-cakapan ni. Let's move on. I say fine, but but we have to make our government understand that these are their roles. One, they understand that the children and families are the vulnerable groups, so they will target it first. Right? Yeah. So there are, as you mentioned, there are many ways to skin a cat. The experts can put their heads together, look at those ways where local organizations can play right now, especially in providing resources. All right? Perhaps it has been done many times. We appreciated our frontliners, barisan hadapan. So these frontliners, they need moral support, not just moral, perhaps financial support from us as well to get them through. They have shown pictures of them so tired, but you show next to the picture people are having makan and then complaining about not being able to go for holiday. I know the feeling of these frontliners, they don't even have time to breathe. So when we follow social distancing and follow recommended safe health behaviors, we are actually helping our frontliners. And we should consider the spectrum of families and children across our community. Our leaders can go down and see what kinds of family. Who are these vulnerable families? Families of orang asli, families of converts perhaps, families, nuclear families, apa-apa families lagi kan, all are suffering. Although the types and the levels are different. So all these are challenges during this crisis. And COVID-19 actually looking from a positive point of view presents an opportunity for us to come together. To come together and work and unite how to protect our society from deterioration. We cannot be so individualistic. Me, myself, these are the post-modernism disease. I only care for my children. As long as my children eat, sudah. My neighbors tak makan, that is their problem, not my problem. As long as whatever, if my smell of food, they can smell my cooking, that's their problem, not my problem. They just have to shut their windows. So basically, I am proposing, Sister Annie, that
Mm-hmm.
the government call all the experts together. The experts are willing to come to be frontliners in terms of think tanks to
Mm-hmm.
identify the problems, identify the root cause, identify how to solve the problems effectively. There are many, as I say, there are many ways to skin a
Mm-hmm.
cat, but they have to identify more effective ways. More effective ways. If by giving food, can by giving food solve the problem? You can solve the problem today, but you cannot solve the problem tomorrow or
Yeah.
20 years down the road. No, you can't. You can only solve immediate problems. This is like putting band-aid, band-aid
Yeah.
on a big bruise. You can't do that. I
Yeah.
don't know how you can do that. So it's like looking through special operations. So our family is undergoing what I call a family attack, just like a brain attack, which is stroke,
Mm-hmm.
nerve attack, which stroke, a brain attack would be stroke as well, isn't it? And
Yeah.
heart attack, but this is like family attack. So the doctors will have to identify the experts are the experts.
Mm-hmm.
I am seriously looking into this and would like to extend my hand to IKIM for us to work together to get the experts on board to help the government instead of criticizing government at the moment. We can criticize later, but at this
Yeah.
juncture, we have to join hands. So if
Mm-hmm.
IKIM is taking this initiative, I really congratulate IKIM for doing so. And I congratulate you as well for highlighting this issue, Sister Annie, because this is a very pertinent and important issue to be tackled from the roots. Thank you. I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm done with that 15 minutes.
Uh, but Prof, we have a few minutes more. I would just like to maybe ask. You've talked about your statistics, the importance of statistics, and how we are actually maybe I can say a bit lagging in terms of coming fast numbers compared to
Yeah,
our
yeah,
counterparts in many
yeah.
countries, especially. Um,
Uh-huh.
you, as an academician, as someone who's involved in various
Yeah,
research, Prof, how
yeah.
could academic institutions, help to maybe come up with research areas of research that is relevant to
Yeah.
this particular issue, Prof?
Yeah.
As a
I think
conclusion to our discussion today.
you have raised a very important question, Sister Annie. One, academics cannot do this alone. Otherwise people will say, Allah, academics, they are so theoretical. We want people on the ground as well. So we have the
Mm-hmm.
academics who will do the thinking, putting on the thinking hats, and
Yeah.
then trying to get experiences of the NGOs dealing with people on the ground. What are the problems that they are facing so that we could match the theories and the real problems, the realities. And then we have the bureaucrats as well, the
Yeah.
governments, perhaps to see resources, to put in resources to see how best to solve the problem using the current resources,
Mm-hmm.
though the current economic problem has gone into trillions, not billions anymore, into trillions.
Yeah.
And I say this is solving the problem, not the current generation, but we are going to lose 2 or 3 generations. So we have the academics, the bureaucrats, the governments, the NGOs coming forward, or they call it the CSOs, the civil society organizations to help in as well. So all
Yeah.
these three big entities
Mm-hmm.
should put their head together. All right,
Yes.
and we should also try to tell the politicians. Like I said, can we tell the politicians to stop politicking? You know, you can't, because these are politicians. You know, it's
Yes.
just like you can't tell a person who is fasting to stop fasting. You know,
Yeah.
so what we can do is try to get them on our side, because we are in a circle. This is not like I'm on the other side of the river. You are on the other side of the river.
Mm-hmm.
Let's build a bridge to cross the river.
Mm-hmm.
No, that is too slow, because we have to build a bridge to the river. What we can do is, instead of building these rivers and bridges, we should work in circles. In circles, having academics, CSOs or NGO, and governments and
Mm-hmm.
politicians together. I have yet to see this working out. If
Mm-hmm.
not, I think perhaps by January we just have to move things. We can't just
Mm-hmm.
wait.
Yeah.
The plane has to fly, as they say that the train has to move. So we can't wait. This waiting game, I'm waiting for you to move, you are waiting for me to move, nothing moves. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to give a timeline for moving and running, for flying. I remember a few months into the pandemic, the Indonesian government, although people say
Mm-hmm.
so many negative things about them, I see the universities are moving very fast in discussing the families during the COVID era. How are we
Mm-hmm.
to prop the families and what they call it, boost the families in their darkest hours. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There is dark, there is light. You see, from the Islamic perspective, when there is light, when there is dark, there is light.
Yeah.
There is always light after dawn, and then after dawn there would be darkness as well back. So it's like a cycle. Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
like a cycle. So that's part of life.
Mm-hmm.
So to end, I would say that let's look at COVID-19 positively. It's a time for us to get together, to help each other for a common cause. It's not
Mm-hmm.
my cause, it's not your cause, for a common cause. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you
All right.
very much.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Dr. Zaliha Kamaruddin, for your insight on the topic empowering the family institutions, issues and challenges. I think what you have mentioned in your concluding remarks, how important it is to have this synergy and dynamic relationship among those various entities that you have mentioned. I think it's high time for people to realize, not just people, I mean, it all levels of society, from the leaders to the common people in the community, to realize that they have a role to play to help us strengthen the family institution. And in facing the pandemic, you have rightly mentioned about the challenges that we face and the after effect of this pandemic upon the family institution. So with that, once again, Prof, thank you for being with us on Open Forum. Inshallah, we'll talk about this topic in the future in different angles, as you have mentioned, and hopefully soon, we get to see this synergy forged between all the entities that you have mentioned, so that we can move forward and help us understand better what the real problems that we are facing, Prof. With that, thank you. I hope our listeners will tune in again to Open Forum next week in other topics on Open Forum. And thank you again, Prof. Assalamualaikum
Yeah.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.